Hammanskraal residents on land partly owned by the Tshwane municipality and a royal tribal family. 2 municipal workers were killed and 3 buses torched during an anti-eviction protest earlier this week. They were angered when red ants tore down their shacks.
Gauteng MEC for Human Settlements Paul Mashatile met community leaders, Tshwane Metro officials and representatives of the Gekana Tribal Authority today. He said the Sikapaneng area will be developed, a steering committee will be established and those removed will be returned. Mashatile emphasized that no new squatters would be tolerated on the piece of land before it is developed for human settlement. Community representatives welcomed the intervention. 5 people accused of public violence appeared at the Mashatile Magistrates Court today.
Now, for more on the situation in Hammanskraal, we are now joined on the line by our reporter Ofentse Sitimo in Pretoria. Good evening, Ofentse. Now, what was the outcome of the meeting between MEC for Human Settlements Paul Mashatile and the residents?
As you mentioned in your intro, the outcome of the meeting is the fact that there's going to be a steering committee that's going to investigate some of the challenges that the residents of the company and other surrounding areas have been facing about accommodation. And upon completion of that steering committee's investigations, most of the people who had been residing in the company before the eviction started will benefit, as you mentioned, that the company is actually going to be developed. So they are going to mark most of the shacks that are there. After the shacks are marked, then people will know that those whose checks are marked are the ones who are supposed to be prioritized the moment development comes to the area of the company and surrounding areas. The chief was also there, and he will also form part of the steering committee, as well as some of the local leaders who will decide as to a way forward following the outcome of the steering committee's investigations.
Now, Ofentse, take us through some of the reasons that were put forward in terms of putting these evictions on hold.
Putting the evictions on hold is due to the fact that there was so much violence that 2 people actually died, and in fact there was also the torching of buses. The fact that people were actually very angered by all of a sudden being evicted without actually being given prior notice. Most of them had been arguing that they were not actually warned that there would be evictions taking place. They just woke up one morning and they saw red ants busy tearing down shacks. So the municipality decided that due to the volatile nature of how the evictions actually took place, with 2 people actually losing their lives, they decided to actually put it on hold. This was prior to the Gauteng provincial government actually stepping in, where Mr. Paul Mashatile actually mentioned it today officially that the evictions would actually be put on hold.
Ofentse, we're looking at the visuals now. Have the people of Hammanskraal rebuilt their shacks, considering that they're saying that the evictions have been put on hold, or are they just waiting? What are they using for shelter at this point in time?
Yes, with the story that we flighted yesterday, it's Blessing Manale, who's the spokesperson for the Tshwane municipality. He mentioned that the evictions would actually be put on hold. At the moment most of the locals actually heard this, all of them this morning started rebuilding their shacks, and those that were voluntarily leaving the area to go back to their homes were now in a positive light coming back to come and rebuild their shacks, as there was certainty that there won't be any evictions. Most of the people that actually were leaving were those who were actually afraid that they stay with families, they stay with little kids, and they wouldn't want the situation where the red ants arrive unannounced and start demolishing their shacks, and they get into a situation where, there's a bit of a scuffle between the red ants and the locals. But because now there is certainty that the state and government has decided that it will proceed with the evictions, the people are now rebuilding their shacks.
Now, Ofentse, just to step back a little bit, in the intro that I was reading, it said that the land is partly owned by the Tshwane municipality as well as a royal tribal family. Have we heard anything from that family?
From the royal family?
Yes.
The royal family is also part of the steering committee that also will be investigating some of the challenges actually facing those locals. There's Sekampaneng, there's Sirman, and there's Kanana. Among these villages, there's a land that actually belongs to the tribal council that belongs to the Gekana tribal family. But there's also land that actually belongs to the municipality. Regarding land that actually belongs to the tribal family, because the tribal family will be part of the steering committee, resolutions that will be reached as to how the developments are going to take place and who will be allocated where, as I mentioned, that most of the shacks that are already there will be marked to show that the people had been living there for over 5 months. Those ones will actually benefit once the development actually come. And the spokesperson for the royal family, who was also there, did mention that he's also happy that, there is a coordinated effort in finding the solution for the residents of Sekampaning and surrounding areas.
Now, Offense, just finally, you've given us some clarity in terms of what government is going to do about the situation in Hammanskraal. Were there any timelines put down at this stage?
At this stage, no timelines were actually put. In fact, the Human Settlement MEC was at pains to actually explain how come most of the time, as it seems like a tradition that government actually responds after local residents protest and go for a violent protest, So he was really at pain saying that the service of government, even though government is allocating services, it is actually at a slow pace, and the people should have a bit more patience. They shouldn't run to the streets, run amok and destroy property when things don't go their way. They should be a little bit more patient, and services will actually come their way. In terms of timelines, there aren't any timelines that have actually been put in place, but promises have been made to all the residents who are staying in Sekampaning and those who were actually left homeless following the destructions of their shacks by the Red Ant, to say that they will be prioritized. But as to when this will actually happen, it was not clear at the time when we were being briefed in Hammanskraal at the municipal offices.
Offense, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for that update. That was Offense Stimo monitoring the situation in Hammanskraal, where violence broke out after shacks were demolished earlier this week.
Now, just looking at that, the fact that it's getting so cold, winter is
cold,
here,
yeah.
And people had to sleep outside. Some people didn't know where to go.
And I think today the situation kind of became positive in the sense that, the MEC for Human Settlements has stepped in and is giving the people of Sekampaning hope. What we need to see now is the action, and that's where the concern is. You heard Offense saying